in San Antonio, Texas, just off of the Riverwalk, but we're really on the Riverwalk. The Ignite Session 2017. Excited to be here and excited to have this opportunity to host. Thank you, Suzanne and the Math Forum team. Let's get started. Let's get Doug O'Rourke up here. Let me tell you a little bit about Doug. Okay? Doug, mathematics teacher in the Chicago Public School System for 17 years. Also works in the STEM Center, currently works in the STEM Center at DePaul University, which partners with the Department of Mathematics for Chicago Public School Systems to design and deliver district-sponsored professional development for all math teachers in Chicago Public School System. He also currently serves as the Executive Director of Math Circles of Chicago. I bring to you, Doug. Woo!
All right, what's the key to teacher transformation? I think this answer tends to be personal for people and based on experience. So what I'd like to do first is I want to go back in time 20 years to 1997, when I was a young teacher. 1997 was a special year for me. It was actually the year I got married. You can see, Andy might remember, I used to have a lot of hair then, good old days. And you know, I was 5 years into my teaching career, so I really had a lot of growth to do. Now, you know, how was I improved? Well, the answer, of course, is feedback. Here's actually, at the end of my 5th year of teaching, the feedback I got. Notice my excellent attendance. I knew a lot of subject matter. And then down here at the bottom, we have weaknesses. So let's move on to the next part of the form. We'll find out what I need to work on for the next year. Not a lot for me to work on, and I was pretty experienced. Something seemed to be wrong here. Now, obviously something that's wrong, but really, as I thought more deeply about this, I thought, really, is it my principal the right person to give me the feedback I need? Who was the person I was most likely to learn from? Obviously, something was missing in this system that we used to use. It made me question this top-down model of teacher evaluation. When I started out, the focus was on individual teacher capital, but what Liana argues in this article is it's really about teachers' social capital. We have to include that too. Now, what do I mean by human capital? The implicit message I got when I started out was that teachers learn by themselves. To get better, I just needed some teaching tricks. All I needed was some more math knowledge. All I needed was human capital. That was natural, but I'm here to say that it was wrong. What I also really, really needed was social capital. Social capital lies within relationships between teachers, particularly at a school site. It has to be developed at the school level. Teachers collaborating, getting feedback from each other. That's the missing link in teacher transformation. I'd like to emphasize that I'm not downplaying the development of individual teachers. Better frameworks for providing teacher feedback have surfaced over the years, and I really believe in them. It's just that I've come to have a different view of things like the Daniels. When I first became a teacher leader, I tended to focus on the first 3 domains over here: planning, classroom environment, and instruction. And what I'm here to say is I think we need to find more balance. Professional responsibility simply doesn't get enough emphasis. And in turn, we tend to focus solely on human capital. So how do we build social capital for teachers? I'm going to draw on my current experience in Chicago. I work with teachers to develop cycles of safe practice with feedback in their own schools. We use a common language and vision that promotes teacher learning. Now, there are several key pieces to effective teacher learning, peer learning. These experiences need to be job embedded. They need to be frequent, and they need to be cyclic. Questions emerge in one round that then are addressed in the next. We also use a lot what's called peer collaboration. We have cycles that include a pre-brief where we do the math, we choose a focus, we do a lot of role-playing and things like that. But in the debrief, the focus isn't on individual teacher learning, but shared learning within a group of teachers within a school. We also use the Teaching for Robust Understanding in Math framework for our common vision. This framework it's from Alan Schoenfeld in Berkeley. It describes the conditions for a mathematically powerful classroom. It gives our teachers a shared vision that promotes shared learning. Whenever our teachers engage in a cycle of peer learning, they choose one of these dimensions as a focus. They're always asking, is this lesson providing access for kids? Is it promoting agency? These are essential questions that we return to cycle after cycle. True also comes with a conversation guide. These guide these cycles. It gives us prompts for everything from the pre-observation all the way through planning the next steps. It helps teachers share their experience to support learning for everyone on their team. There are a ton of benefits to this approach. First of all, it gets teachers out of those egg cartons that they tend to live in. And when they come together in this way and they have this shared learning, the focus becomes on teaching, not on teachers, like they said in the teaching gap. Catch that reference. I also like to talk about the fact that in some ways this social capital emphasis is like complex instruction for teachers. When teachers collaborate, they have common experiences that help level the playing field. Teachers will learn to value every colleague's contribution when social capital is high. Another benefit, by building a conversation around this common vision where everyone has a shared understanding, we tend to focus not just on the what we're doing in teaching, but why we're doing it. Not how do you do the math talk or how long should it be, but to what extent is it about connecting mathematics or promoting agency. We want to leave a lasting impression in the professional work we do with teachers. We know in the old-fashioned system, when they get PD, only 5% of it is implemented in the classroom. What Nelson says in this article is it's really cycles of professional collaboration that are what do leave a lasting impression with our teachers. Finally, our children benefit when our teachers have more social capital. The students of teachers with low human capital do much better when their teachers work in the kind of community I'm describing. And aren't those the very teachers we're trying to transform? Thank you.
Put your hands together again for Doug. Next up on the stage, Cindy Klisch. Let me tell you a little bit about Cindy. Well, no, I say because I see here she says over 35 years as a K2 teacher.
Wow.
So when she gets up here, you're going to say, no, I don't see 35 years. Okay? But she recently left the classroom to be math coordinator at Murfreesboro City Schools. She's also been a teacher trainer with the Tennessee State Department of Education, and in addition, she's been busy. In addition, she's a project-inspired assistant with Middle Tennessee State University and the Murfreesboro City School System. Cindy's been doing some writing and working with NCTM. In 2004, she was a presidential awardee, and she's received her bachelor's from Ball State and her master's from Berry College. I'll bring to you Cindy.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today and to really think about this question, what is my passion? The answer was easy, early mathematics, right? And a colleague said, why? Why early mathematics? And I said, let me think back, and it was a conversation I had actually with the music teacher in my building early in my career. And I said in that conversation, I can't sing. And she said, everybody can sing. You just didn't have the foundation and understanding to learn to sing. And I thought, oh my goodness, the same is true in math. How many adults say, I can't do math? And I say, you didn't have the teacher that laid the foundation and understanding to allow you to do math. And I knew then I was that teacher, right? That's my goal. Fast forward to Jo Boland. She has the research, right? Everybody can grow their math brain. No one is born with or without a math brain. So knowing that, we come to our next question, right? We've got to think about, what do we do? What's a good indicator that students can overcome challenges as they mature? The answer is early mathematics. That research comes from the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And in that research, they say that children who have those strong math skills, as they mature, can overcome challenges more easily. Oh my goodness, we know where our focus needs to be, on those early learners. So we're thinking about math skills, building a strong foundation. Where do we go first? We look at those students, right? Because they come to us with 3 characteristics, and that's where we start building, right? The first characteristic that I've noticed about young children, they're natural problem solvers. Hudson busts the door and he says, Miss Klisch, I just saw a clock with a 12 and a 6. Can you tell time on a clock with only 2 numbers? He brought that problem to the classroom. Early learners are natural problem solvers. Early learners also have strong opinions, right? Olivia goes to the board and she solves a problem and she says, you can only do it with subtraction. And my class is going like this. I agree. Except Leah Kate, who says, I disagree. I can solve it with addition, and went on. Early learners are enthusiastic. You give them a rich task like measurement golf by Kathy Coons. They're out there measuring and working. They're enthusiastic about math when they come to our classroom, right? So what's the best predictor of academic achievement, high school graduation, and college attendance more so than any other early childhood skill? The answer is early mathematics. And that comes from the governor's report, and it's actually the work of Greg Duncan at Northwestern that says early mathematics competency predicts later reading achievement better than early literacy skills. So guys, we have to look at early mathematics. I mean, we need to look at that. Educators, you must encourage the language of math in your classroom. You do that through number talks, noticings and wonderings, and classroom discourse. Those rich questioning, right? You get children to talk. And while they're talking about the language of math, you also have them, you're also integrating math and literature. We know when we're reading that story, we can pull those rich math tasks out of that literature and pose them to our enthusiastic learners because they will dig deep. We also, as educators, must allow for students to engage in high levels of mathematics in those early grades. They come to us enthusiastic about math. We need to build on that. And educators, I'm also going to say you must allow time in your classrooms for students to play with numbers to build that number sense. And that's done through fluency games, such as snap, salute, hit the target, and break the bank. Allow time in those classrooms for play. We must have strong content knowledge through the monthly Twitter chats, through the webinars, through the conferences, and also Graham Fletcher has on his blog those progressions. We need to know that. Look at that early numbering counting for our early learners. District levels, level leaders, you have the responsibility of making sure there's a high-level program in your district. Time is allotted each day for math, and effective teachers at all grade levels with support. Graham Fletcher's 3-act tasks tap into that problem solvers, right? We want them to have it. Steve Weinborn's flat for that number sense, it's out there. Brian's numberless word problems that build that context that let those enthusiastic learners dig in. So where can you make the biggest academic impact in your district? And the answer is? So make sure you go back, focus on those early learners, and make a difference that'll last a lifetime. Thank you.
Don't you wish it would have been 1 or 2? Go on, put your hands together again for Cindy. So while they're miking up, I know I used to sit there and breathe, take deep breaths. It's okay. We'll work with you. Good. Next up, Brian Bushart. Brian is the curriculum coordinator for elementary mathematics in Round Rock ISD, just outside of Austin, Texas. During his 60, Round Rock, or is that Austin, Texas? Which one? All right. During his 60 years in education, he has taught across the elementary grades, served as a math interventionist, and developed digital math curriculum for elementary and middle school. Brian blogs at Teaching to the Beat of a Different Drummer. Do you have your handle up there? No, you didn't. Okay.
On my phone.
And you can find him on Twitter at bstock, STOCK, US. I bring to you Brian.
In my 3 years as a curriculum coordinator, I've overseen roughly 3,200 assessment items in grades 2 through 5, and some trends quickly emerged. Most notably, students are not making good sense of word problems. Here's a prime example. Jana bought 1 hat and 2 skirts. It says so right there in the first sentence, and yet 36% of the students in my district found the cost of 1 hat and 1 skirt. Conferences like this are a great place to come together and tackle these issues, but the last thing teachers want is to go back and have one more thing added to a plate full of meetings, responsibilities, and I'm pretty sure teaching is on there somewhere. So instead of going back and doing one more thing, what if I told you you could go back and do less? 3 less things: less problems, less words, and less numbers. Got a little break to breathe. So let's start with less problems. And this might seem counterintuitive. I've got kids who can't find the cost of 3 items in a shopping basket. So don't they need more problems? Don't they need more practice? And here's the issue with that. They end up getting worksheets like this, or worse, packets of worksheets like this, where you are cramming problems on a page like sardines, and you are crowding out space for student thinking. And really what we want is student thinking. And so what we need to do is give less problems so students have more space to write down their ideas. With less problems, they're going to have more time to share and talk about those ideas with one another. The second thing we need is less words. If students are not closely reading a problem like the 1 hat and 2 skirt problem, then why don't we reel it back a bit and make sense making the focus of our work? So here's another problem. This one is about the area of half of a sheet of paper. And in my district, 46% were able to figure it out. Half of the students found the area of the whole thing, or they might have halved one too many times. So here's the problem with less words. The question is completely gone. And with the question gone, students are left to make sense of this situation, not knowing yet, what am I going to do with it? And so instead, I can focus on drawing, imagining, maybe getting a sheet of paper and let's cut it in half. We can do it horizontally, we can do it vertically. I can actually do it in a lot of ways, and that might actually be a lot of fun to explore. And now that I've made sense of the situation, fine, let's toss you a question. What is the area of each half? Well, I know the area of the whole thing is 4,500, and so half of that must just be half of 4,500. So the third thing that we need less of is numbers. And again, counterintuitive. If I don't have numbers, how do I have a math problem? Well, the trouble with numbers is that it causes students to plug and chug, and they just want to race to get to that answer. So here's an example of a problem that's really challenging for kids. It has comparative language. In my district, teachers or students were drawn equally to 2 answer choices. And it really came down to, did they understand why there was an extra 400 in the correct answer? So take those numbers out. And what do you have left? A situation about refrigerators and stoves. And actually, if I pay attention, there's a relationship here. They make more stoves per day than refrigerators. Oh, and now I have a number. There's 400 refrigerators per day. Okay, I know something. And actually, I know something about the stoves too because of that relationship. They make more stoves per day than refrigerators. So it must be more than 400. Well, this is confusing. It says 125. So does that mean that they make 125 stoves per day? Well, let me go back to my relationship. They make more stoves per day than refrigerators. That's a great conversation to have in your classroom with students. So now we've got a question. Now is a time for students to take that relationship, give them some time, and let them see what they can make sense of, and then come back together and talk about it. Teachers, you have a full plate. The last thing that you need is one more thing that you're supposed to do. So let's do 3 less things. Less problems, less words, and less numbers. And what we're going to get is we're going to get more evidence of student thinking, we're going to get more sense making, and we're going to get more understanding of critical relationships. So please, do less and then get more out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryan. Thank you, Bryan. NCSM conference. This was the first time you had a chance to present. Anybody first time presenter this time around?
Yay!
And coming to the stage also is a first time presenter at NCSM. She's also going to be presenting at NCTM. So, and this is her first time presenting at a major national conference. So we had to be her first. That's great. I'm bringing to the stage Christina Normal. Christine is the elementary math specialist for a county office of education in California, where she and her team support 26 districts with their mathematics instruction. She is a master coach for illustrative mathematics and a math methods professor for Cal State Stanislaus. Christina is a proud member of the Math Twitters blogosphere on Twitter and feels lucky to have access to so many amazing math minds with just a tweet. As I already mentioned, this week is her first time presenting at a national conference, so she thought she'd go big by also doing an Ignite talk. I put this one as probably the most proud moment or thing for her. She has 3 little mathematicians at home. I bring to you Christine.
So my mom likes to tell a story about me when I was 3 years old. I was drawing a picture of a rainbow, like with what she describes as meticulousness. Really careful, every band of the rainbow, perfect color, perfect order, if there is such a thing. And all of a sudden, I grabbed a black crayon and I scribbled over the entire thing. And she said, "Chrissy, what's wrong?" And I said, "Well, it wasn't perfect." And so at 3 years old, I had internalized this idea that A, there was such a thing as a perfect rainbow, and B, that if any rainbow that I drew was somehow going to be held up against this perfect thing, and so a perfectionist was born. And perfectionism is the worst, right? Because you just set yourself up for disappointment. And in this case, it totally undermined any productivity at all. I had no rainbow at the end of this. So this reminds me of a quote from Voltaire: "The perfect is the enemy of the good." And in mathematics, the perfect answer can be the enemy of the good try. We have students in our classrooms who say nothing in math class because they're afraid they're not going to say the perfect thing. And there's a reason for that. We have thought of words in mathematics such as progress, proficiency, and precision as perfection, and they're not the same thing. All those words except for progression imply some sort of growth or process. Mathematically proficient students are not mathematically perfect students. When we attend to precision, we're not attending to perfection. And with attend to precision, you know, we have okay, so words are hard, right? And we have totally undermined this idea of precision to the point where we think it's just the right word at the right moment. And it's so much more than that. Precision is about calculation and symbols and labels and words, but it's also mostly about communication. Our students have to communicate their ideas precisely, and in that, we have to accept that there are going to be some ideas that maybe aren't articulated precisely to begin with. The first line in the description of the mathematical practice standard here: mathematically proficient students try to communicate precisely to others. As they try to do that, of course they're choosing words, of course they're choosing structures. But we have to realize that precise claims can be expressed in imperfect language.
Yeah.
Boom!
And in fact, if we always attend to precision at the word level, we're totally getting in the way of students' emerging math ideas. As we think about this idea, you know, imperfect but precise, it starts really early. So my 3-year-old son, he wanted a grilled cheese sandwich. Didn't have the word for that. He said, "Mom, can I have some hot bread with the cheese of America on it?" And I said, "Yes." That's super precise. And this happens in mathematics as well. I gave my daughter some Lego towers and said, "Line them up shortest to tallest." And she did that. She was done, and I said, "Tell me how you did it." And she said, "Well, Mom, I hoomed them." And I said, you did what? She said, "I hoomed them. I took this one, and I went, And I thought this one was taller, and I took this one, and then this one, I went, And I knew that one was taller, and in that moment, I was doing the uncovering of the mathematics, right? Her language was imperfect, but her claim was precise. And I was working on knowing that that meant compare and measure. But if I had been listening for those words instead of to her idea, I would have missed this amazing claim that she was making. So as teachers, we have to work to uncover the mathematics. We have to focus on promoting and privileging meaning, no matter the language students are using. And sometimes that means putting the math before the language. That's really difficult to do. But when you have a first grader who is looking at a line like this and uses the very best word I've ever heard to describe it, are you ready? Vertiwiggle. You go with that. That's intuitive and it's imperfect, but it's so precise. And at some point, that girl is going to have to graph vertiwiggle in Desmos. And there's going to be a mathematical name for that. But I can tell you in this room, we all didn't agree. I was walking this? What do you call this? We don't know. There's not always a perfect word. There's not always a perfect description. So we need to let language be student-led. We need students' claims and ideas to lead to their intuitive language. Then we uncover what they're saying. We help them become more precise by supporting them with those words, and then those words go in their tool belt. Then they have the language. We have this target, and they're going to become more precise. We're going to help them hone their ideas by helping them build their precision. So I want you to think about, when you go back to your districts, can you work on privileging precision over perfection? I know I wasn't perfect, but I hope I was precise.
Toasted bread with American cheese, cheese American. Fantastic. Give Christine another hand. Yes. Next up on the stage is Farshid Sampey. Farshid is the mathematics education faculty at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. He is a Solution Tree presenter and co-author of Making Sense of Mathematics for Teaching series. He is active in professional development throughout the U.S. and Canada and is the program chair for the 2018 AMTE Annual Conference, which will be in Houston, Texas. Woo! So, all you university people out there who know, hey, get to know him after. He has taught high school and at several universities in Florida, New Jersey, and British Columbia, Canada. Farshid loves to engage and empower elementary, middle, and high school students, teachers, coaches, and administrators. I give to you, Farshid.
Thank you very much. Oftentimes our students experience a view similar to this of mathematics. They see it as a disjointed series of islands, and they hop from number land to fraction land to geometry land to algebra land, and with no way of going between them or why they're connected. I want you to take a look at this image. This is from the Dollar Museum in St. Pete. If we only focus on the zoom in, we're going to miss something. If you only focus on the zoom out, we're only going to get limited understanding and appreciation. So we need both. Through big ideas, we're going to take a look at the whole and the parts that make up that whole constantly, like this $100 bill. You see it for what it is and what else it can be in terms of its various parts. Now, if you think about operations, if you take the same 100, we know the difference between 4 times 25 and 25 times 4. While the product is the same, thinking about the parts and the whole make us realize that they're only the same in the product. Continue this way with fractional understanding. So, which of these fractions are equal? Which ones are equivalent? What understanding of the part and the whole are essential so that students can not only understand this, but be able to build on top of it as we continue to go. I did this in my daughter's 4th grade classroom. Promise them a poster that they will love, and then give them all the pieces to that poster, but cut up. They will not be happy, but it's great discussion for. If you give them every single piece, why aren't they happy? Something like pizza, if you get 4/4 of your pizza, you don't feel so bad, you're getting all of it. But if I say the same thing about your car, equal or equivalent? Now, this was a tweet that I saw a few days ago. So wonderful 66 math educators, right? So give a big round of applause.
Yeah.
But there was a comment. So a colleague of mine said, well, of this group, as you'll see, 66 of them represent DNA math. And to me, my mathematical brain said, 1266. I can simplify that to be 6 over 33. What am I doing with the 33 other mathematics educators? Is that fair? Now, think about the part and the whole as we continue on. So we need to understand how partial products work in this case. Same big idea, just developing as we continue to go. Now, we take the same idea, and then we try to continue on through the different grades. So if you think about developing algebraic thinking, the parts that make up x squared plus 2x plus 2 and the whole both need to be understood. Not one or the other, but both. In this month's math teaching in middle school, we kind of took that and we extended it not from 2D, but also to now 3D, understanding the various parts, make us connect the algebra with the geometry. Think about the implications for students who think they should start in one understanding and connect those representations. Not knowing one, but knowing both, when to zoom in, when to zoom out. Same thing happens later on as we get to trying to work with algebra and solving equations. What we typically do is, given the first one, we solve the second one. Well, those are not necessarily equal equations. They might be equivalent, but then we wonder why we end up with extraneous solutions. Those are the same big ideas. So having that flexibility and understanding the various perspectives becomes key. These have been mathematical, but how does it connect to life beyond the classroom? Take a look at this picture coming up, related to the same state being broken apart differently. Think about the implications of gerrymandering. The mathematical ideas give rise to understanding how things fit together and knowing one and knowing the other and how they're interrelated. So the life implications are not only social and economical and educational, but also political as we continue forward. So how do we do that together as teachers and coaches and administrators? So in the progressions that we have throughout the various grades, then we need to be able to connect them not only across grade bands, but also use these ideas to connect them throughout as we continue on. So what I'm hoping is that together, with all of your help, we can begin to move together towards a clearer vision, and so that we can provide a coherent view of mathematics, we can facilitate learning through these connections so we engage and empower all of our students. Thank you very much.
Go and put your hands together again for Farshid. Anybody having fun out there? Coming to the stage next is Sharon Rendon. Sharon has taught every math course from 5th grade through master's courses. She is the wife to retired Air Force electrician and now mom to one adult son, 18. And then she says, and one teenage son. What if you stand them side by side? She loves college basketball and is crazy sad March is over. She did not add this, but I've been blessed to work with her and serve with her on the board for NCSM. Thank you, Sharon, for all you've done, and thank you for the opportunity to serve with you. I bring to you Sharon.
So, wait, don't start yet. I'm also sad that the University of Arizona was not in the conference. That's okay. 1 year, we'll get back. Yep. So I want to spend the next 5 minutes of your life challenging you to think about empowering teachers through trust. As leaders, it's our job to empower teachers so that they can have a powerful impact on students. Now, many of you may remember this movie called Meet the Fockers and the Circle of Trust.
Did I not clearly explain the circle of trust to you, Greg? Yeah, I think I got it.
My challenge to you is to put your teachers inside that circle of trust. So here's my experience in trusting folks these last few months of my life. My children have been learning to drive. My oldest lives on the edge. You would think put him behind the wheel of a car? No way. But he's really turned out to be a very good driver. Then here's my youngest. He stays between the lines, doesn't take a risk, does not take a chance at all. You would think he'd be a great driver. No way. Just look at this picture of him behind the wheel. So I want us to think about 3 questions. First of all, do my teachers know that I believe in them? Do they know that they believe that they can grow as instructors? And do teachers know that I believe in progress, not perfection? Sometimes believing in them starts with looking for positives. Sometimes it might be like looking for a needle in a haystack. It might be as simple as, hey, you showed up for work today. You have 100% attendance. As coaches, we also need to work at identifying what their need is. So from Elena Aguilar, she would say, look for, is it a will gap or is it a skill gap? What is it that they need to be successful? And that helps make our work effective. Trusting teachers is not about making more mini-me's. It's a whole lot of listening, asking, and reflecting. 90% of coaching is invisible and inaudible to the observer. It happens inside the coach's head, and it takes place without anyone else knowing it. I must believe that my teachers are capable of high-quality instruction that is required of them. A great leader inspires others with confidence in themselves. I don't need more Sharon Rendons in the world. In addition to knowing that the teachers knowing that I believe in them, they have to know that I believe they can grow as instructors. There is always hope for improvement. As coaches, our mindset and actions must model belief in growth about teachers. So we would never allow a teacher to say, these students can't. Similarly, as coaches, we cannot write off teachers. We cannot give up hope. All means all. Every teacher can show improvement. We need to support them and encourage them to take risks. They need to know that there's safety and support. We want them to try lessons that are out of the box. We want them to courageously look at data, and we want them to give kids rich mathematical experiences within their classroom. And when they fail, which they will, they need to know that we're there to support them. We can be their cheerleader, and we can remind them that learning comes from mistakes and taking chances. We need more level 3 and 4 teachers. Now, you probably work with some teachers that are like, but it's scary. That's okay. We can encourage, we can impact that. We can make change for them. I once had a teacher say, there's no way my kids can do that. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? Give it a try. A week later, I got this email. You were right. I didn't have to review all these things. Thanks for the help in the pep talk last week. I would call that success. When we encourage them to take risks, it is going to get loud. It's going to get messy. They're going to go astray. Kids are going to get off task. That's what we want to see. We need to encourage teachers to be more risk takers. And finally, teachers need to know that it's about progress and not perfection. They're on this journey as an instructor. They're trying to go from A to Z, but they don't have to do that all at one time. They just need to take one step at a time. We really have to shift the conversation from what's wrong to what's next. We do not need to be in the business of fixing teachers. We just need to be about developing them. Excellence is the gradual result of always striving to do better. And there's going to be bumps along the road. Your good driver is going to back up into your friend's car in your driveway, and the next day you're going to back up into your kid's car sitting in the driveway. But we cannot lose belief that our teachers are going to continue to improve on the journey. We need to empower teachers. They need to know that we believe in them, that they can grow as instructors, and it's about progress and not perfection.
Go Sharon. Give Sharon another hand, please. Next up is Bryan Shake. Hold on, I gotta ask Bryan a quick question. Acronyms every now and then, you just want to know what it means before you say it. Bryan has been a high school teacher for 15 years at Canyon Crest Academy in San Diego. He's been a TOSA for 3 years. Anybody know what TOSA is? No? Well, I didn't use that one before. For 3 years, that's called other assigned duties where we work now. He's been a TOSA for 3 years with San Diego Union High School District, and a college adjunct instructor for 15 years with UCSD and Mesa College. He helped write California's Common Core Standards and Framework for Math Instruction. He's been program chair and committee member for CMC South Palm Springs and many NCTM conferences. He helps write the SAT math test. Wow. So you're getting Bryan used to raise chickens and organic vegetables. I bring to you Bryan.
So yeah, I'm going to be talking to you all about changes. In particular, how things have been changing and how our schools have been structuring assessments and some of our curriculum. A lot of things have been happening in the past few years with assessments, and in particular with the past 9 months or so since November. I know in November my kids kind of had a bit of a heart attack when things happened on November 9th in my school, very liberal school that I'm at. And so they were a little bit anxious. We have a lot of things going on that don't quite make sense with regards to math and reality and politics. And I'm going to focus on math for a little while because that's what we're here for. And so a lot of things have been changing in mathematics about what is math. Math is pretty constant, but the way we've been seeing and talking about math has changed a lot in the past 10 years or so. Assessments have changed, and the topics of what we've been teaching, geometry in particular, have changed a lot. Calculus is a study of change. And so we've been talking about in calculus how things move with rates and slopes. With calculus, we talk about how you change your frame of view with things like over there with the Jacobian. And in particular, what I'm going to focus on is how the assessments have forced us to change, not just calculus, but in particular about geometry. There's this whole idea of cause and effect, and how the things that have been happening through the pipeline from DC and whatnot has really changed how we're changing our curriculum and our assessments. I think the biggest threat to math right now is not so much what happened in November, though you're going to see something ironic and funny in just a moment. Come on, there we go. That is a big threat to public schools right now, is that crazy lady. But the biggest threat, in my opinion, is how assessments have changed, and how not just what happened to baby Jane, poor baby Jane, but really whatever happened to, come on, here we go. What happened to geometry. I feel like geometry has changed a lot. Geometry is all about proof and reasoning and logic, and when I Google images geometry, all I see are things about shapes, area, volume, angle measurement. I see humdrum proofs, I see 2-column proofs. I don't see engaging, interesting, rich activities about geometry. The main reason why geometry has changed so much is because our assessments for geometry force us to assess basic skills. We see in geometry assessments basic ideas of what is an area, what is a volume, what are some angle measurements. The assessments can't properly assess thinking, logic, proof, and reasoning. Most of the assessments we see in our curriculum are boring, humdrum assignments like that, or worse yet, the thing that's going to pop up in just a moment. We see some boring old 2-column proofs where everybody's expected to fit proofs in nice little boxes and buckets. These are some wonderful 21 states, all of whom now use the SAT and the ACT as their high school final exam, their high school assessment. And I feel that's a bad disservice. Even though I helped write the SAT, it's not designed to measure proficiency for all students to get out of high school. It's designed to get ready, to show kids who are ready for college. You can see right there, there's about 6 questions on additional topics in mathematics for the new SAT. Of those 6, maybe 3 or 4 of them are geometry. And so therefore, many of those 21 states are teaching less geometry. They teach it differently, and they teach less geometry. The ACT is also very similarly structured. Very few questions cover geometry topics on the ACT, yet that is a test that many states, 21 states, use to assess students. This is an example of an SAT question about trying to assess students' reasoning abilities about geometry. There's an ACT question. Basic ideas about angle relationships. When I look at the Smarter Balance, which is what California uses, as I look at that blueprint for the 11th grade test, all of those are about algebra and functions. None of them are about geometry. When I look at some of the assessment items on the Smarter Balance test, Smarter Balance, because of the nature of it, it can go a little bit deeper than how you see the standardized tests of multiple choice in the SAT and the ACT. But still, the assessments are very much focused on computations or proving claims through writing in blurbs. When I look at the performance task assessment guides and blueprints for the Smarter Balance test, it's all across the board. A big chunk on data and analysis statistics. Geometry is not explicitly called out. I had to hunt a little bit hard to look and find some geometry performance tasks in the Smarter Balance test. And here's one, still focused on area and volume. There's some element of reasoning and argumentation, but still, the problem is it's all about computational work. And that's what students feel geometry is. It is finding an area and finding a volume. So I think what I need you all to do, since many of you are supervisor leaders, is you can help change how geometry is taught and assessed. You need to be the ones to change how you're assessing geometry. You need to change and go up the flagpole and advocate for better experiences and better testing for our high schools. So thank you all. Good luck.
I'm gonna give Bryan another hand here. Next up on the stage, Thomasina Adams. Thomasina is from Gainesville, Florida. She is a professor and associate dean at the University of Florida and a thought leader for Algebra Nation Project. She is a co-author of Making Sense of Mathematics for Teaching series by Solution Tree. She had an article in the very first issue of NCSM's Journal for Mathematics Education Leadership. Thomasina is the program chair. More people that you need to get to know. She is the program chair for the 2018 NCTM Annual Conference in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Thomasina.
Thank you for this opportunity. What I hope to do this afternoon is to share my story with you, that it might be a source of inspiration to you as teachers, and of course, those of you who are parents or who have children in your lives. I want you to think about what I'm sharing that might be applicable to those children. I grew up in South Carolina, a very small town called Saluda, so small the fire department burned down. The main industries were peaches or chickens or textile industries. I'm the youngest of 8 children to a father that at the age of 81 died as an illiterate adult, and a mother that only had a high school education when she became 35 years old. I was born on Hancock's Place, which is a chicken farm. It's where my father worked at the time. It's where my mother worked at the time. It is how they took care of us. I grew up on chicken backs. No one wanted to eat backs at that time, and chicken wings. Nobody wanted to eat chicken wings. And so my father was allowed to bring them home. My earliest memory of school is going into kindergarten and seeing a white dress that Mrs. Deloach had brought in one day. And it was a place where I didn't feel comfortable because I just felt that it wasn't a spot for me. But she put out bowls of paint and allowed us to put our hands in paint and put it on her dress. And then a few days later, she wore that dress back to school. And that sort of solidified my relationship with school at the time because that's what Mrs. Deloach decided to do for us. I also, in elementary school, fell in love with this book. And in this book, it has a family that takes care of a lot of children. The children are Will, Jill, Hester, Chester, Peter, Paul, Tim, Tom, Mary, Larry, and little Clarina. I learned that in 4th grade. That's what teaching would do for you. When children are invested in their education, they receive a voice. And I received that voice in elementary school. I began to know myself and understand myself and appreciate who I was. I didn't really care that my family was poor, that we didn't have the things that everyone else had. But then when I got to middle school, it was very hard for me. It's where I began to have a lot of torment inside. Because I was bullied a lot. I was bullied because I was skinny, because I had long hair, because I had big eyes. And so middle school was not a good place for me. High school was not a good place for me. I didn't feel like I was good at anything. But when I graduated from high school, I got a job, and I was a girl at the peach farm. And one of the things that I did is sat at a conveyor belt, and as the peaches went through the process, I would reach in and grab the rotten peaches and drop them down a chute. When that job was over, I got a job at a blue jean factory. I was the girl that put the 5 dots on the blue jeans so that the next girl could put the 5 buttons on the blue jeans. And many of the girls who worked in the blue jean factory were girls from my high school. And as a matter of fact, at that particular time, my mother had left the chicken farm and she was working in the blue jean factory herself. She came to me one day and she said, as the youngest of her 8 children, she wanted me to do something better. She felt like I could get out. and she said to me that she wanted me to go to college. I didn't have any idea about what going to college meant. I didn't have the opportunity to be in the college track in my high school, but I found myself in this place nonetheless. And it was a place that was confusing for me. I sat in my first dormitory room for 2 weeks, not knowing what to do, where to go. And my roommate says to me, "You need to go see someone." And I found this man, and he took a paper out of my hand that I had gotten from the admissions office, and he scribbled something on it. And he said, "You go tell those people you're a math major." Like, really? I'm a math major? I was so out of it, I didn't know that I had gone to the mathematics department and I was actually speaking to a mathematician. That's how I became a math major. It didn't matter that I was poor. It didn't matter that my father couldn't read and write. It didn't matter that my mother didn't have a high school education, or that I had worked in a blue jean factory, or that I had worked in a peach farm. None of that mattered. He saw a living being that could do mathematics. How about this little girl that learned how to do mathematics? There are other children in your classrooms now who are just like me. I want you to understand, every child, each child can do mathematics and be a success as a mathematician, a mathematics teacher, a mathematics educator. Thank you very much.
Wow. Give Thomasina another hand. Yeah. Wow. Skip, you wrote all this? Okay. I'm gonna start right here in the middle. Francis Goodfennel was a mathematics educator who has experience as a classroom teacher, principal, and supervisor of instruction. Skip is a past president of the Association of Mathematics Teacher Educators, AMTE, the Research Council for Mathematics Learning, RCML, and the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, NCTM. Skip served as a writer for the Principles and Standards for School Mathematics, the Curriculum Focal Points, and the Common Core Standards for Mathematics. He also served on the National Mathematics Advisory Panel. Skip has received a bunch of honors and awards, including Mathematics Outstanding Mathematics Educator, McDaniel College Professor of the Year, the Glenn Gilbert National Leadership Award for NCSM, the Case Carnegie Foundation Professor of the Year for the state of Maryland, AMTE's Excellence in... No, I want to go to this top part. I'm going back to the beginning. Skip is emeritus he's at McDaniel College. I thought he had retired, but I'm not sure. But I think I do have proof, because my wife will be graduating from this college, getting her master's in May. And she says she did see his office, but Skip was not there. And then you probably also know that he works with the Brookhill Institute, where he helps support elementary math specialists and teacher leaders project, and that also, my county benefits from that also. More importantly, and most importantly, on a personal level for Skip, he is a father of 3 and a grandfather of 9. He has completed 9 marathons and countless races at shorter distance, and he is a horrible pickleball player. Personally, Skip has been a leader of leaders as he continues to do what we need to do as he leads in mathematics still. Skip Fennell. Yeah.
This is a journey. You caught the title, I'm wandering and I'm worrying. And just so you know, he talked about stuff, but basically I've been in the trenches, in the tower, in the swamp, and I'm done with filters. So you're going to hear some. I'll talk a little bit about content. I spent a lot of time working with number sense, and you can see the problems there, the kinds of sense of number we would like children to have, certainly when they leave elementary school. And by the way, those numbers too. Okay, having trouble with fractions again? So a couple of things to think about relative to not just Charles Schulz and peanut cartoons is these are actual real statements. Less than 0.0025 of the crowd was arrested, detained at last year's preakness. That was read on television. The weather reporter on WCRB says it's going to 30% chance of rain. And where? 30% everywhere. So I alert you to Angela Spiedel's amazing source 180 estimation for working with estimation in number sense. And by the way, if anybody ever told you the basics were unimportant, that's certainly not true. Going to teaching in the classroom, I view what you do in the classroom as that artist's palette. And you paint that every day, and you think about what that might look like. And so as we think about that, think about when you began this craft of teaching, not only that first day, but the realization that the kids were coming back the second day. And the fact that, you know, physicians worked on cadavers before they got to practice medicine. You work on real life people. So our notion here is ensuring your pathway to proficiency, what I'm going to call GOATness. And for those of you who are sports freaks, the greatest of all time teacher or leader. So how do we do that? We first of all have to support teachers in professional learning opportunities where teachers have a say, where we provide resources, where we have opportunities to learn from each other, where equity is an everyday issue that we have to consider. As we think about curriculum, these have never been perfect. And frankly, they've never been tested. Notions about expectations. I read yesterday in Education Week that districts are looking for a playlist-style customized curriculum. Oh my God. Issues around assessment, including a shameless plug for the formative 5, because we know that formative assessment isn't understood well in schools and classrooms today. And the notion about high stakes. High stakes are for tomatoes, not for assessment. When did you become a GOAT? When did you become that greatest of all time teacher? Maybe practice helped you, the words of Malcolm Gladwell. Mathematics learning is such that you have to come back to it. You don't get it every day. How do we foster GOATness, if you will? Paradigm for elementary teachers thinking that you know everything about all subjects has never worked. We have to. We must have elementary math specialists. And I sincerely thank the National Council of Teachers, Supervisors of Mathematics, not the teachers of math, supervisors of mathematics, for riding herd on the notion of the role of coaches. And this project that John mentioned is something that's been a major part of my life for the last 6 or 7 years. So all of this is important as we think about that. And yes, we have critics. But welcome to our tent. Respect what I do. Listen to me. And frankly, if you can't deal with number 2 and 3, get the hell out of my tent. That's where I'm going. And the notion about that, what's really important as we move forward here, the respect for our profession. Why is it that people don't understand soccer, but they'll travel with kids all over the planet and give respect to that? How about some respect for mathematics? The case of overparenting that many of you are seeing on a regular basis. So we're worried about charter schools. By the way, I decided not to have a likeness of the current Secretary of Education.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that she knows what IDEA is now. So pay attention to professional development being cut. How do we leaders learn, grow, and become GOATs? Learning never stops. Such learning and growing is more than coursework. We have to have alternatives like the ShadowCon and MTBOS as ways for teachers to get professional development 24/7. And that's what's happening now. I worry about next steps for all of us. This needs to be a collective notion. We need a different approach to conferences and attracting and engaging members and providing access to leaders. And the future of NCTM, NCSM, and all of these organizations that we're proud of needs to come together. This journey is about all of us. More important, it's about every child, every day. Know that you and your teachers influence and impact students because they come back, they see you shopping, you make a difference, and after all, every one of you is a GOAT in some respect. So I think that's it. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, another hand from Dr. Skip Fenner. And then there was one. We're bringing to the stage Annie Fetter. Annie has worked at Math Forum since before Al Gore invented the internet. She hosts the Elementary Math Chat on Twitter about once a month with her colleague Max Ray Reiki. She's been a Dallas Cowboys fan since 1977. Woo! Cowboys.
Deal with it, right?
Yeah. She has replied to more than 100,000 pieces of student work in the Math Forum's Problems of the Week series. And I'm wondering if it was like back in 1999, I got this email from the Math Forum to help my students understand this whole issue around how to appropriately communicate with the person that was on the other side. It was like they were mad because you were telling them their problems were wrong. Yeah, I had one of those kids. But it helped them begin to understand how to work in that whole social setting. Catch up with her the rest of the week if you want to talk beer, bluegrass, bass guitar, ice hockey, sourdough, only an off-the-grid house, or even math education. I give to, oh, one last thing.
He's in charge, he's the president.
I'm gonna say, yeah, what? Oh no, it's past my time, hold on. Mic drop. The one thing I want to say, and this is something, and I don't know if it's true or not, so don't claim it and don't quote me. I believe Annie brought noticing and wondering to more mathematics educators understanding. So thank you. I give to you, Annie.
One day I invited 3 third graders to come up in front of the class with me and help teach their classmates how to play addition topic. And 2 of the kids looked at the other kid and they looked at me and they said, "She doesn't do math with us, she goes out." In a 7th grade classroom I did a noticing and wondering activity about a story with mean, median, and mode, and the kids had all these fabulous ideas, and when it was all over, the teacher said to us, "I had no idea they knew all that, I haven't taught it to them yet." In a 6th grade classroom, Suzanne was with me, this woman did this, kids act out like picking different breakfast combinations to find out how many combinations there were. And the kids were being completely random, and then they started getting systematic. And right at that moment where you could see they had a plan, she said, "Let's go back to your seats. Here's how you do it." And she wrote this on the board, and she filled in the numbers, and she said, "See, isn't that easy?" It was horrible. It was so sad. All academic subjects should take into consideration students' ideas, but it's particularly important in math because math is the most guilty of telling kids that their ideas are not worthwhile. Right? They just have to learn someone else's ideas and be able to replicate those things. Now, blindly believing in adults can be really dangerous. I know kids who think that this is how you add fractions, and they think that 5 3/10 is greater than 5 89/100 because tenths are bigger than hundredths. And then let's not forget, of course, it's true that we cannot avoid the fact that there are some adults who struggle with things, let's say, like ordering 3-digit numbers. But let's leave some space for this moment. I saw recently when a teacher said, "We're going to write this as 0.05 because it's hundredths," and one little boy said, he didn't agree, and he explained to the class why he thought it was 0.50, and the class eventually agreed with him, and it was beautiful. I recently saw this quote: "There has never been a more important time to teach young people to suspend judgment, weigh evidence, consider multiple perspectives, and speak with wisdom and grace on behalf of themselves and others." And that is a wonderful, idyllic thing, and it is not going to happen if kids think they don't have ideas that are valid and that are worth talking about and even arguing about. So let's just say you wanted a couple quick ways to work on ideas and not other things, like answers. You could start, say, with number talks. Number talks are not about answers. Number talks are about paths to answers. How many different ways can we find that answer? And how can we look at each other's answers and compare them and learn different ways of thinking? Or maybe you want to do some counting of the dots. How many? How did you count? You all think that there are 10, but I would bet your neighbor saw it a different way than you. And when you talk about it, I ask teachers, how many of you heard a way from your partner that you didn't understand at first? And this one teacher said a couple weeks ago, "Once I see it one way, it's really hard to switch and see it another." And isn't that the work that we want kids doing in the classroom, is listening to each other and deciding which ideas are valid and how are they the same and how are they different and which ones can I learn from? There are activities about ideas that do have different answers and we care about answers, but the only reason we care about answers is we want to know why they think that is the answer. Which one doesn't belong is one of them. Pick a number that doesn't belong in the green square, but tell me why you think it doesn't belong. We'll all have different things. I want to say a little shout out for real world ideas. Everyone's like, oh, we got to have real world context, that's what's relevant to kids. There is nothing more relevant to students than the ideas that are in their head. Do whatever the hell you want in class and listen to their ideas. In a recent workshop, my colleague Max shared these 4 principles for good math discussions, and they're all important. It's from the book Intentional Talk. Thank you, Allison. But you can't read that. Well, you kind of can, actually. It's big up there. But 2 of them. So students need to know what and how to share so that their ideas are heard and are useful to others. Teachers must communicate that all children are sense makers and that their ideas are valued. Now, contrast that with what I was hearing in the stories that I told at the beginning. She can't possibly have any ideas that are relevant to what we're doing in this class. Why would I listen to their ideas? It's not going to change what I do. Or we're supposed to let them explore and develop ideas, but it's faster to just tell them how to do it. There are a lot of elements to creating communities of learners and attending to access and equity. These include who gets to do math and who has ideas that are worthwhile. The most important thing we can teach our children isn't content, right? It's up to each and every one of us to make sure that students' ideas are what drive the mathematics in our classrooms and our schools, and we need to do all that we can to make sure that all of our students believe that that is true. Thank you.
Gentlemen, give them a set another hand. Stand up, turn around, take a bow. And to close out, I'd like for the audience to join us in this one song of participation. Ready? Now it's time to say goodbye to all our company. MIC, NYMOUSC, because we love you. See you next week, 2018, Washington, D.C. Have a great